Hey everybody, welcome to Squid App-etizers. This is a brand new series that we're starting, and this is not to be confused with a Build an App workshop. You will not be building anything today. So hopefully that's either a relief, maybe a disappointment, but either way, we're gonna have some cool stuff to look at. So Squid App-etizers is a series that's really all about showcasing some really awesome things that have been built either by the community or by us for some customers. And today we've got Matt Brown, who's one of our product managers. I said product marketer because now I have become I know, sorry, didn't mean to disparage.
We're all in product management and we're all in product marketing.
Indeed. So my name is John Nelson. I am a product marketing manager now, formerly of the product management team. But yeah, so we're going to get started and get rolling through some stuff. We've got a quick agenda that we can look at of what we're going to be going through today. And that's pretty much it. Matt, I'm going to hand it off to you. You can talk through what you're going to be touching on, and that's pretty much ready to go.
Perfect. Yeah, we're going to be really light on slides today, really heavy on getting into the nuts and bolts of actually working with Salesforce and Squid. What we want to do, actually, before I do this, just want to make sure audio, video coming through okay? John?
You are loud and clear, man. Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Yeah, you're good to go. Everything's good. I forgot to say it. The logistics of webinars is always something important to go over. So one of the things, as we go through, you're probably going to have some questions or comments. Please feel free to put them into either the chat or the Q&A portions of Zoom. Some of them, we've got a few folks who are on the line as well who can answer those questions. They may answer them in line if there's something that's relevant to what we're talking about, or probably the answer we want to pull out for the whole group. We may just kind of pause and then actually I will highlight it for the whole group. So feel free to add them in, and then we'll hit them as we go. If we don't hit them in line, then we'll try to circle back to them at the end.
That's great. Yeah, we're actually going to try and do a lot of stuff today. We are going to be looking at Salesforce dynamic pages. This is a new feature that is coming out in summer 20. I believe they're calling it a non-GA preview feature. And it's set to be available in winter 21 GA. But if you want to play around with it, and again, this is Salesforce we're talking about, you can access it via a pre-release preview org. There's a link out there you can get to. If you're looking for it, we can send it to you. But it's pretty cool, and it's been one of their longest running ideas that's been requested on the success community in Salesforce, and it has it's kind of a spiritual sibling of sorts to some of the ideas that we do in Squid. So we love seeing it. It's the right direction, and we wanted to show what it can do. In this webinar, we want to take a quick look at it so that you get a sense of where that's going to make sense, what it can do, and then how you can use Squid to take it even further. So we're going to take some time talking about dynamic forms and dynamic pages. If you're looking for the idea on the success community, it's called dependent page layouts is what it started out with. And it's gone through a couple incarnations. I think they're calling it dynamic pages right now. But let's actually take a look at it. So we're actually, sorry, John, let me keep going through that. We're going to start with that, but then we want to talk about some of the things that you can do with Squid on top of that, and being able to take it further, because kind of knowing where those limits are is helpful. And then taking it even further into some of the other environments like Lightning communities. We wanted to show how you could use these same ideas for much more complex scenarios. So that's our agenda for today. Let's go ahead and get started and actually dig in. Go ahead and share my screen here. Make sure I share the right thing. Okay, y'all should be seeing Salesforce there. We're looking at a record page for a site record.
Yep, that's good.
Cool. And again, if y'all have questions, please go ahead and post them in the chat. We'll do our best to answer them as we go. But yeah, we want to get into some of the how-to today and we're going to look at some of the technology that's coming down the pike that's going to be useful for admins and developers in Salesforce. So I'm going to start by looking here at a record page with a detail section in it. This is a record called, this is a site, this is a custom object that I've created in the pre-release preview org that Salesforce has made available. I'm going to go get into the Lightning App Builder to customize this page. So you'll see that since we've enabled dynamic forms in this org, and there's some really good resources out there, Salesforce tutorials, Trailhead, on how to enable it. It's enabled at the org level. And once you've done that, then you'll see this section over here on the left where you can pull in individual fields into the page. Okay, so previously you could grab kind of a record detail section, pull it into the Salesforce page, and into the Lightning page. Now you can do individual fields. And this has the potential to save a lot of time for admins that might be spending a ton of work configuring all these different page layouts. And instead, you can just pull in your individual field and then set criteria where it should be visible at this Lightning level. So they're funneling things in here so you can spend more time in here and instead of having to go to different places to configure that. So what I've got is a multi-select field here called Teams Present. And I've got some criteria set for when this is going to be visible. And it's controlled by another field called Status. And so I'm only going to show Teams Present if the status is open or planned. And so the options for how you can control that visibility are going to come from a couple different places. You can choose from another field value on the same record, or you can also look at the running user information. You can look at running user permissions, and you can also actually do some logic off of like a parent object if you go traverse up that hierarchy. So pretty cool. So that can be really helpful. And I want to call something out here. They use a really good design pattern of giving the user an indicator where they have some of that logic applied. So you can see that little icon there. So that's really great for an admin. If they're managing a page with a ton of fields on it, they can go look and see, oh, hey, this is where I've actually applied those settings. I can easily go drill in and configure it. You've also got a couple other options for the UI behavior here. And what the logic is, and or custom logic for when that gets applied. You'll also hear Salesforce talking about dynamic actions. And what that means is being able to apply that same kind of conditional or that component visibility settings for the buttons, links, and actions that you set up on the object. So you've got these different object actions like new contact, new opportunity, things like that that might be related to this object. You can then apply the same kind of logic that you do to fields to those buttons. So that's what they mean when they're talking about that. Okay, so that is in a nutshell what dynamic pages are. They're really helpful. It's going to be hopefully saving a lot of time for admins that spend a ton of time configuring page layouts and more. All right, so you'll notice that we are on a custom object detail right now, a record page. This is the only scenario that it currently supports. So dynamic pages, if you go look at their release notes, are only supported for custom record pages right now. And so if you need something like this for standard objects or more complex scenarios, that's where you're going to run it up against some of those limits there. And so let's take it one step further. So this is, you got custom objects, standard objects. What about multi-object experiences? You don't, as an admin or developer, you don't want your end user thinking about what object something is in. That's about navigating a database. You want your sales user to be thinking about their customer. You want your support team to simply be thinking about the cases that they're working on. They don't want to have to go try and remember where things are and navigate. So when you think in terms of integrating multiple objects into a single seamless experience, that's when you're going to start to get into a custom application. And your options there typically are going to be either very, very complex declarative tools that can lead to declarative spaghetti, depending on what it is you're building, or going to custom code. And sometimes you just have to do that. And there are places where it's a really good fit, but it is technical debt, It is expensive. It takes a lot longer to build out. It's more expensive to maintain. You want to be really targeted in how you do that. So what we're trying to do is when you hit those limits, we want you to still be able to use declarative tools to build out those custom applications that you need. So let's continue with the use case that we have here. Our site record looks up to an account, and our users want to be able to see and edit the account information from this site page. So I want to be able to have edit access, do all of my work that I need within this context. This is how I'm thinking about it. This is how we do business. So I want to be able to do my work without it being interrupted. So I want to be able to see and edit that account information from the site record page. And we're not going to be able to do that with dynamic forms because, one, we're talking about account, which is a standard object in Salesforce. And then two, we're talking about editing details for two different objects in the same record page. So let's go get into Skuid. If you're not familiar with Skuid, Skuid is a managed package on the App Exchange, so you can install it into your org. The way you're going to get there, I'll go ahead and open this in a new tab. You can get there via your app navigation once you've installed it. It's 100% native, which means it's just sitting in your Salesforce environment. And it's going to inherit all of your user permissions, your data model, all that stuff. So it's great. You've got this great data model, great process automation underneath. You want to be able to just build on top of that without having to reinvent the wheel every time. And so we can go get to the Skuid app and get into the Squid Composer. And this is a page that I've started to build out that I can then put into my Lightning page alongside my other Lightning components. So quick refresher, if you're not familiar with how Skuid works, we're thinking about building Skuid pages in 3 layers. You got your data layer, your visual layer, and your logic layer. We want to be able to go connect to data, we want to display that data, and then we want to be able to give the user options to make this dynamic with actions, with logic, all kinds of cool things. So those are the 3 layers that we're thinking about. So the first thing that we're going to do is make sure that we're connecting to the data that we need in this page. The way we do that is going to be to go to our Models tab. So in the Squid Composer, we can go set up a model. Model is just a connector. If you think of it as a way of connecting to an object and pulling in that object information into the page, we can see here, we can connect to just about any object in Salesforce, whether it's standard or custom, and we can have as many of these models as we need in the page. So when you think about how complex data models can get, you want to be able to get access to a lot of different points of data within a single screen, within a single process, and that's how we do it. So here I've got a model that is looking at the URL. So Salesforce, it's a relational database. When you click on a record, it's going to get that ID. It's going to throw it up into your URL there so we can see the ID of this page record. Squid pages are records in Salesforce objects. And that's how Salesforce works by passing those IDs around. So in my model, I can add a condition. And conditions are essentially where clauses. They let you build out your query to determine what data you're bringing in. So I can go look at the URL parameter value and say, go look at that ID in the URL, and I want you to go get the site record that matches that ID. All right, so we've got a model. It's going to have one record in it. Then I can go create another model, this time on the account object, and I can put a condition on this that looks at my previous model. So I can go say, go look at that first model with the site record and get me the account that matches the account field on that record. So we've got our models that are talking to each other. So this is what we mean when we say that we're creating a data layer in our page. Okay, so I've got those connections. Then I can go say, all right, I want to go get these fields. This lets me be really specific about what data I'm bringing in. Then that helps me be conscious of performance. If I want to go get 1,000 rows on an object and I want to get 200 fields for each of those rows, and 50 of them are dependent multi-pick list fields, that affects performance. Salesforce queries can only do so much. Any database query can only do so much. So this lets us be really specific about what data we're bringing back when. All right, so I've got my connections to objects, I've got my fields, that's my data layer. Now let's talk about displaying that data. We've got a number of components that we can use to build out the structure of our page. Here I've got a wrapper, which lets me apply some things like spacing and layout properties. I've got a text component that'll come back here in a little bit. And then we're talking about a detail page, a record page. And the Skuid form component is going to be a really good way to do that. So Skuid has all these different components that are great for all kinds of different pages that you might need to create. And I can go look for the form. I can drag that into our page like so. Now I've already got one, so I'm not going to do a new one. But I dragged in a form here. I was able to go add my section heading information there. And then I brought in a couple of fields. Okay, cool. So we're just showing some basic account information. Now, when we think about our use case, what we want to do for the user is show them the right information at the right time. And it's a really simple thing we just want to do here. We want to show the description field in our account information only if the industry that's selected is other. So I can go get that description. We'll add that there. And I want to point out a couple of things about Skuid field properties. So what's cool about Skuid is that when you click on a field, you'll see there are all these things that you can configure about it. And so this is the industry field. All right, this is a pick list, and we have the option to render this a couple different ways. We could show it as radio buttons. We could show it as a button group. So there's all kinds of different reasons we might want to make those decisions about the user experience. All right, if I click on account description, this is a text area field. This has other properties we can configure, things like placeholder text, the max number of characters to display, whether or not we want to show a length counter, letting people know when they're getting a little long-winded. I need that sometimes. But then every field in Skuid has this option to affect display logic. So let's go look at this. So again, I said that component visibility in the Lightning app builder is kind of a spiritual sibling of this, but this is going to have a wide range of criteria that's going to be really helpful when it comes to much more custom applications. So we can do a lot with this. Let me take a second here and get into what we can do with display logic. All right, so you can see here we've got render conditions and enable conditions. So fields and buttons in Skuid, we can choose to enable or disable or hide or show based on a number of criteria. So let's go add some criteria here. We're going to add a render condition. And you can see here we can look at another field value on this object or other objects. So if I want to go only show this field on the account, if this field on opportunity or site is this value. We can look at things like whether or not the model has unsaved changes, how many rows are in the model. We can look up at URL parameter values. We can do some really cool things with looking at the viewport width. So we talked about industry before, showing it as radio buttons or as a button group. I might want to go with one of those scenarios in a phone form factor, but on tablets or desktop, I might want to go with a different rendering option. So a lot of cool things that we can look at when it comes to setting those render conditions. We're going to go with something relatively simple right now. We're just going to go look at the industry field here. Go ahead and select industry. And if industry is equal to other, that is when we want to show our description field. Okay, so relatively basic use case. I can then go put that inside our Lightning page by going to the component section of the Lightning app builder. So when you install Skuid as a managed package, it's got the Skuid page component that comes with it. We can go drag that into this accordion section here. All right, and I can pick the right page. It's called Site Detail Expanded. All right, we'll go ahead and hit save. And if I go back here and hit refresh, All right, there we go. So we've got our related information from the account object being shown alongside our site information. The user doesn't really care what object these are in. That's really helpful for us as admins and developers in creating those relationships. But as a user, I just want to be able to get to my information. And so here I can go set this as other. And now we've got this place where I can see more information or edit more information about the account description. And we can get that dynamic form experience for standard objects and multiple objects in the same screen. All right. So that's our initial stop. Let's, again, if you have questions, please go ahead and post those in the chat. Happy to talk about them. Let's move this forward a little bit. I want to talk about another highly requested feature on the Salesforce success community that comes up a lot in talking with admins and developers. And it's the ability to have page layouts display fields from related objects. So when you think about working on an opportunity, you've got information that you might want from the account, from that parent account. You might want to go over to a sibling object or a cousin object, and we want to see that in line. And so I want to show you how you can do that with Squid. Normally, what you might do is go create a formula field on your object to be able to display that, or a roll-up summary. But Salesforce has limits on how many of those you can do, and with good reason. They don't want it to get too cluttered. And so, but that's the limit that admins will often run up against. So I want to show how we can go do that with Squid. All right, we've got our account information here in our detail page. I'm going to go and get into my model. So we've got our account model. I'm going to go get the parent account field and go ahead and drag that in here. I want to be able to see that. And then I want to traverse up. We got this little arrow here. I want to traverse up and get the billing country for my parent account object. Just going to make sure that that actually came through. All right. So this might be important because if I'm a rep and I'm talking to my customer, I might need to make different decisions knowing that their parent account is in another country. Maybe their tax laws are different. Maybe I'm working with a different team there. That's important context for me. So I can easily go get that. I didn't have to make any changes to my data model. And that's the big thing here is we're using this really powerful data model and letting you get to whatever you need when you're building out that front-end experience. So now I've got my parent account information and my parent account billing information here as well. Now the thing is with this, oops, I think I grabbed the wrong one. Let me go ahead and make sure I get the right billing. And that's important because there it is, because they have the same label in Salesforce. I might want to change my label here, but just in this context. So our field properties actually let me create a custom label right here. All right. Okay, so let's go back, we'll refresh, take a look one more time. All right, and there we go. It's in Great Britain. We're traversing 3 levels up. We've got our site, which is what we're looking at here. Then we've got our account information, but then we've got that account's parent account information as well. And that's really one of the key takeaways with Squid is that you don't have to think about, you know, how many levels up is this? I've got my data model correct, but am I going to be able to build out the UX that I need? With Squid, we're really trying to give you the best of both worlds there. Okay, so that's another highly requested feature that I know admins and developers run up against sometimes, a way that can be helpful in building out these dynamic form, dynamic page experiences. There's one more thing I want to do in the context of this page, and that's dynamic formatting. So really common use case, I want to be able to highlight certain information based on certain criteria. I'm not showing or hiding it, I'm just changing the formatting and the style. A lot of places, you can do that with CSS. It'd be great if I could do that without CSS. And that's where Squid's Design System Studio is going to come in handy. So One thing that you may have noticed is that our styling here looks very similar to our styling up here. And so when you create a design system using the Design System Studio in Squid, you choose your base system. And one of those is the Lightning Design System. And so the benefit of that is that you can go create Squid pages that you use in Lightning pages, and they're going to have a consistent look and feel with your out-of-box Lightning components. And that's really important for helping the user know where they are, helping them not be confused at what they're looking at. And so we want to do that here. We've used the Lightning Design System as our base. We've got all these colors that will match with that. The way borders are going to work. We can set up all those visual variables that are going to apply to across all of our pages that we apply this to. But if we think back to our scenario, what we're wanting to do is add a pattern to this design system that calls out information that has recently changed. So in this use case, we want to be able to highlight a section if a related record has been changed recently, to let the user know they might need to go check in on that, make sure that the information is up to date. But the pattern is this idea of calling out information based on certain criteria that it potentially needs attention. And so we want to create a pattern that's reusable. And that idea of reusing design patterns throughout your experience, it's really important. It reduces the mental lift. It makes it easier for your users to read the page, to take that information in, to understand what's most important, to navigate and use your system. And if they feel more comfortable doing that, they're going to use your system more, and your data quality is going to go up. So in our design system, we'll go ahead and look at our components. You can see all the Squid components here. And with the components, you can create variants of components that can be used in different scenarios. So with the wrapper component, I've created a variant called Needs Attention. I've chosen this particular color as the background color. And then I can do some things with the borders. I just applied some padding. 16 pixels, always good to do numbers divisible by 8. Now I've got a reusable design pattern that I can use in every Squid page where I might want to call something out. All right, let's go back to the Composer. This exists in our design system now. So if I look at my page, I can look at my wrapper. We're going to go back to display logic. So again, that's where you go, where you can do conditional rendering, conditional enabling, and in a number of places, style variant conditions. So I've added a condition here, and I want to apply this variant if these conditions are met. And what I'm going to do is I'm looking at another object. So we've got cross-object validation. I'm doing something to my account information if something on my site information is true. I'm looking at my site record. I'm looking at that last modified date, and I'm seeing if it's in the past 7 days. And if so, then I want to apply this style variant. And I'm also going to render this text that says, hey, site info has recently changed. Please review account info and make sure it's up to date. So we're helping drive the user so they can easily do whatever it is that we need them to do. So this is what it looks like in this scenario. Nothing has happened to this site in a while. But if I go look at the Houston site for Edge Communications, this was actually edited a little while back, earlier this week. And we can see that this has now been applied. And I was able to do that, I was able to set that up in a few minutes. I didn't have to write any CSS. And that is going to be how we can use conditional formatting to drive users to the information that is really important. So we've got a fairly simple use case here. We want a streamlined dynamic form experience on a record page using data from multiple objects, both custom and standard. It seems fairly simple, but scenarios like that will often result in custom applications. You might need to go do custom code. We're really trying to make it easier, more declarative, and let you be able to do this with Squid instead of having to go, again, use custom code. All right. This is a back office app. This is something that our sales team might use or service team. The last thing that I want to look at today is how we can get all of that, but in a Lightning community. And so if we think about kind of the current context, the new realities of COVID-19, there's all these digital transformation projects that companies may have been thinking of doing, and now all of a sudden it's a lot more critical because your digital processes need to be have a lot more integrity. You need to be able to interact with your customers, your partners, your employees in a way that is highly reliable, that's branded, that rehumanizes instead of dehumanizes. You want it to be easy for them to navigate those things. And so communities is going to be one of those places, I think, where you're seeing a lot more of that. How do we create a partner community where folks can go get to these things where previously they might have come for an on-site visit, or one of our reps might have gone on-site to do it. So I want to show how we can do that in the context of a Lightning community. So let's go do that. I'm going to go get into the Lightning Community Builder. Let's go ahead and get into that here. Okay. Now this is using the build your own template. With Lightning communities, you got a number of templates that you can use. Some of them look really great. Marketing templates, self-service templates, and they come with different options. I went to build my own because I just wanted to build something from scratch. But if you do build your own, this is just a little rabbit trail. If you do build your own, there are some components that you don't get in Lightning, namely the navigation menu. You don't have an option for a navigation menu. So I think the expectation is if you're going to go build your own, well, go build a custom Lightning component that lets you do that. And there's a lot of developers out there that can do that. But if we want something simple, it'd be nice if we could do it without code. And so I just created a Squid page with a nav component in it. It's really, really simple. It's just got a nav that's set in the middle using our masthead component. And then using the action framework, I've got a go to URL action that just takes us back to the home page. And I can use this same page across all of my Lightning community pages as well. And so it's if I need to go change something about that nav, the nav item, I can just go to the Squid page, change it, and it's going to persist across all my different Lightning pages in the community. All right, so what I've got, it's just a simple list of accounts using the standard Lightning list component. These could be accounts that my partner users are managing. And in this use case, we want them to be able to get into an account and have some of that dynamic form experience, conditionally rendered fields, maybe conditional formatting, when they're interacting with information on that standard object in the community. That's something else I want to call out, is that dynamic pages for Salesforce not currently available for communities either. So this is another place where if you want that, Squid's going to be a good way to extend and build on what you've already got with the Lightning Community Builder. So if I go look at my record detail page, the good news about editing, putting Squid into a Lightning community is that it's basically the same process of working in the Lightning App Builder for back office applications. So Lightning App Builder for back office apps, you've got different components, a little bit of a different experience from what you get in the Lightning Community Builder. When it comes to Squid, it's exactly the same. You go build your Squid page, and then you can bring your Squid page into your Lightning page. It shows up as a custom component down here. So that's what we've done. I've set up a record detail page for my account information. You can see I've got my Squid header page up at the top that lets me get back to my list. And then I've got my account information here, again, with some of that custom logic that is just going to show fields in certain scenarios. And so the end result is that when I am in, let me go pull it up. Where are we? Yep. So as a partner user in the community, I can go get into one of these accounts. I've got some standard Lightning components here, but then I've also got that functionality that we wanted to be able to deliver. And again, this is something that, setting that up, it's a few minutes to go set it up. So you can do rapid iteration, rapid prototyping. If you want to put something in front of some proxy users and say, hey, is this what you mean? Really, really fast to be able to go do this, which is a critical part of building these out. There's just no substitute for the is this what you mean factor. And that's one place that I know our solutions engineers and Squid builders really appreciate Squid's capabilities. All right, a lot of information there. I'm going to slow down for a bit. I think we've got some time for some Q&A. I just want to recap what we've talked about. So we looked at dynamic pages, which is a Salesforce non-GA preview feature in summer 20, coming GA in winter 21, currently only available for custom objects. And so we looked into how we can extend that using Squid for standard objects, multi-object pages, and then some of the other cool things that we can do with related objects being shown in line, conditional formatting, and then using all of that in community as well as for back office applications. I'm going to stop there. John, any questions, anything that we want to go back and look at more in detail?
No, I mean, first of all, this is just huge in terms of like, we know when we were at Dreamforce last year that there was a ton of excitement around dynamic forms and dynamic pages, and the PMs at Salesforce were just kind of geeking out on their ability to finally deliver this in some way, shape, or form. One of the things that I think you touched on earlier was that you would still have to go back and configure some of those pages back in the old layout editor too, on top of having to do it in the Lightning App Builder. So part of what we're trying to do is bring a lot of that experience together and really enhance and sort of marry up to what Salesforce is doing with their dynamic form. So super cool, really exciting. And I think one of the things that's worth pointing out too is everything that you're seeing here. So Matt's showing a lot of form elements and the pieces that are really complementary to the page. You can completely make a hard right turn and build something completely different or completely outside of what the page contains in terms of really dynamic, brand new apps and controls, building those into a page. And those have the same exact functionality. So that conditional rendering based on values in the page, based on values from other objects, is really possible with anything within Squid. So super cool. Yeah,
I want to call something out there. This is one of the things that's great about Squid. And for me, Squid and Salesforce was really how I cut my teeth on building out a relational database, building out an experience that someone can use. And what's great about it is that you repeat concepts and ideas over and over and over again. And you're going to have the same kind of thing. So once you do it a few times, you might do it in another context, but you're using a lot of what you've already built, as opposed to having, to learn a completely different configuration experience, for this type of scenario as opposed to that. What I mean by that is that idea of your data layer, your visual layer, and your logic layer. When you're building with Squid, it always comes down to the data that you've got in your models. If you know how models work, you can build just about any kind of page. With our components, you're using them and reusing them in all kinds of contexts. So you're going to learn this is what wrappers are good for, this is what responsive grids are good for, what tables are good for, so on and so forth. And you're going to be able to repeat those concepts from use case to use case. Same thing with the action framework. So we're really trying to make it a unified, consistent experience for any page that you build, whether it's a dashboard, a form, a table experience, a graphic intensive, customer community. You're using all the same tools and processes every time.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that's worth pointing out today with what we're showing is you don't have to let go or throw away what's already there. So we're showing that Squid obviously has the capability to completely replace screens or build brand new screens that are sort of marry some of those other pieces that maybe were disparate to start with, but you can very quickly and simply complement your pages, your existing pages as they are. So if you're already getting a ton of value, which you likely already are, getting a ton of value out of Lightning, out of Salesforce as it stands right now, you can simply slide in and build some quick customizations to get some quick extra value as those needs arise. you don't actually have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Now, if you want to build some more complex stuff, then that's another option too. And you really can go either way. So, and you also, it's not all or nothing. So per object, per function, really, you have that ability to go either way. You can build it tailored to what the needs of your organization are. So it's,
yeah, that's a really good point. When it comes to Squid builders, one of the things that we see with our customers is that there's a huge spectrum of how they use it. I've worked, when I was on the solutions engineering side, worked with a number of customers that implemented communities where branding is really, really important. Styling is really, really important. So they're building the whole thing from scratch the way they have it, because they have a design system that they're working from. And we've had a number of customers where the prospect of building that out custom with code just was completely untenable because of the costs. And so they were still able to keep it mostly declarative using Squid, but it was complete custom experience.
Yep.
But then you also have a lot of customers that use Squid in really targeted places. I need this process that the user is going to navigate to from their homepage, and I want that to be really powerful, really streamlined. And then we're going to come back to this kind of normal scenario where they can go to a bunch of different places, and we're going to use the out-of-the-box tools that are already available, which is great. And we have a lot of customers that do that as well, and everything in between. That's a really good thing to point out.
Yeah, the point is really being enabled to do exactly what you need, as opposed to having to be shoehorned into a particular path or scenario. And that's, as somebody who's built Squid a lot, built with Squid a lot for a lot of customers, that's something that I always appreciated, was there's so much flexibility in how you actually execute the solution to your problem. So I think we're at a good spot to open up for questions. I didn't see you come in beforehand, so we might have just kind of rolled through, and there's great information and nothing popped up. So want to leave another minute or two for people to pop on with any other questions, generally about Squid, about the content we talked about today. Otherwise, we can wrap it up and call it there. But we'll leave a few more minutes here. But Matt, appreciate you going through this. This is great stuff, man.
Yeah, I do want to call a few things out. So if you haven't seen in the chat, Josh Cutler, who heads up our product content team, has been posting a number of links to actually, let's see, I think it's just Salesforce stuff. So us on the App Exchange, and then some of those ideas that we were talking about on the Salesforce community. I think it might be helpful. Josh, I don't know if you're there, but if we could maybe post a link to Squid's docs on connecting to Lightning and communities. We've got a lot at docs.squid.com on how to use Squid in the context of Salesforce Lightning, and then also how to implement Squid in communities as well. It really is painless, and Salesforce has invested a ton in making communities just better and better and better over the years as well. So it's a really, really good fit that I highly, highly recommend. A lot of our customers are using that.
Yep, that's great stuff. Cool. Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions. So with that, we appreciate everybody's time. Thanks for jumping on with us today. We're going to do more with Squid App-etizers, look into more areas to just get extra value out of Squid, more patterns that you can follow. So with that, we'll close it. We appreciate everybody's time. Matt, thanks so much for jumping on with us today. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Sean. See ya.